How do past presidents affect Donald Trump? That's a great question, but we know there's a lot to be said about presidents and how they affect the actions of the current president. Today, we're taking a look at three presidents that I think most likely represent Donald Trump's current White House desires. And if you agree or if you disagree, leave a comment below because we'd love to hear from you. And don't forget, hit the like and subscribe because Charlie needs to be fed. Let's check out the first president. And if I were to ask you a simple question, who does Donald Trump admire most when it comes to presidents? I've done a lot of research here, and two, I've come automatically to a conclusion. The third one, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, but I will give you a hint. The third president is a Democrat, and you want to stick around for that one because I'm here to tell you that you might say, well, this makes really good sense, and I could see some of that president's attributes. But let's talk about the easy slam dunk president that Donald Trump really is doing a lot of references to during this presidential term, and that's William McKinley.
When it comes to tariffs, President Donald Trump really looks up to,
President McKinley,
like a lot.
William McKinley. William McKinley.
William McKinley, highly underrated.
Has not been properly recognized. William McKinley is an example. He was a big tariff president. He was a strong believer in tariffs.
I'm a fan of William McKinley.
McKinley did oversee one of the biggest tariff bills in U.S. history.
He was the tariff king.
He called himself,
A tariff man standing on a tariff platform.
but in his second term, he basically abandoned that platform.
It really changes his mind in some sense, or wants to shift the focus of trade policy away from protectionism and isolationism and allow for more international trade as a way of helping the U.S. economy.
Here's how McKinley used tariffs, how Trump is following a similar playbook, and why McKinley actually came to speak out against them.
All three election cycles that Donald Trump ran for, we know that every single time he won Ohio. Secondly, William McKinley comes from a connected family, as does Trump. But equally as important, William McKinley had an attitude about how to best bring the country forward. During the McKinley administration, there were some industries that were just starting. J.P. Morgan, for one, as the nation's leading banker, not to be confused with Standard Oil's emergence during this time period as well. But hold on, wait for it. There was also the emergence of U.S. Steel. So these are three big businesses. And so Trump can kind of relate to that because of the big business nature of Trump's own businesses, right? But it goes beyond that. Trump has gone to great lengths to connect with McKinley because McKinley is a big believer in tariffs. These tariffs were designed to do what? Protect American businesses, big businesses, but also to help the workers out. As in during this time period, workers were really in a position where they could have jobs, keep jobs, and not let these businesses take off to other parts of the world. So we know that McKinley was very pro tariff. I have a clip here to share just a couple moments of what McKinley was really on about because I think it'll help you better understand. But if McKinley is definitely a pro tariff person, we can see where Donald Trump definitely connects to McKinley. And with that, you're very aware of now kind of that connection between Trump and McKinley. And once again, Trump does care about the average American. And I know a lot of times his actions don't always seem that way when we're talking about all Americans, but we know that his voter base most definitely connects with him. And who's Trump's voter base? Well, let's face it, it's business owners, it is technocrats, yes, upcoming techies that know a ton about how the world of technology works. And finally, number three, middle class to lower middle and middle class Americans. Those are his three groups, and McKinley knew how to connect with all three of those groups. Let's check out his second presidential influence, and I think you're going to agree with this one. James K. Polk is a pre-Civil War president born in Tennessee. Now, we know that America looked a lot different back in the pre-Civil War United States than it does today, but hear me out. I liked Polk for a couple of reasons, and we talk about Polk in history. We say that he was very much with the Southerners, very much about westward expansion. So, check out the three things that Polk gets done during his presidency. He says, one, he will straighten out the border between the United States and Canada. One of the war cries is 5440 or fight. Scenario number two was he was going to annex Texas and make Texas part of the United States. So back then, Texas was its own independent country. Polk says, no, 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 that's going to become part of the United States. And the third part is to expand the United States all the way through California to the Pacific Ocean. Those were Polk's three promises, and he made true on those. And the interesting part was that once Polk was done with those promises, he said, I would never run for a second term as president. Now, how does this connect with President Trump? Interesting that you ask. It just was unveiled the other day that President Polk's portrait now appears in the White House. You might find that interesting that as President Trump has rhetoric about Greenland, about making Canada the 51st state, taking over the Panama Canal once again, we know that he admires the frameworks that have been established by other presidents. So with that, we can kind of see that connection. If you agree, leave a comment below. And if you disagree, make sure you leave a comment below. So let's go on to the third president, and maybe you'll agree with me on this one. Maybe you won't, but put it this way. Trump has always been the guy who's had public duels, public arguments, and has not been afraid to stand up for what he thinks is right. So I think you may agree with the third presidential choice we'll be speaking about today. If there was a president who loved the David versus Goliath battle, it was none other than Andrew Jackson. Now, I realize it, Andrew Jackson was a Democrat. But hear me out. Andrew Jackson was also a populist. Translation, the people mattered the most to Jackson. He looked out for the interests of the common man. That was what he was all about. So when you take a look at Andrew Jackson, he was a larger than life character as well, as is Donald Trump. But here are a couple of these other connections that I think you'll find is interesting. For one thing, Andrew Jackson did fight public duels. And while there's rumors that he fought hundreds of duels, the fact is there are only a couple of duels that Andrew Jackson actually fought. But the notion of dueling Andrew Jackson was in of itself kind of a threat. And I really do think that Donald Trump works the same way. He will publicly take on his opponents, not in a duel, but maybe a duel of words, a duel of power, flexing. And so we can make that connection. And you might say, you're onto something, Brian. But more important than that, everything that Donald Trump did is for the betterment of the American people. That's what Trump says. He wishes that the United States would look at things in a long-term format during his second presidency. And of course, Andrew Jackson carries himself the same way, always looking out for the interests of the average person. He thought the Bank of the United States was evil. He thought the modern-day Fed would be the detriment of America. Now, I don't know about that. I am not an economist. I'm definitely not a Fed employee, but I will let you come to your own conclusion. Trump says he'd like to see interest rates coming down because that's good for the United States debt, that we'd be able to refinance our debt, which 10 trillion is coming due very, very soon, at a lower interest rate. That's what Trump would love to see so we can put pressure on all these prices and bring things back down. And so Andrew Jackson did something very, very similar while he was president of the United States. Not only did he push for interest rates to go down, heck, he got rid of the bank altogether. I don't think the United States is in a position right now to do anything like that. But if you like the idea of a populist, you like the idea that Trump also is a populist, then the common people are his people. And if you know who supported Trump in the last election cycle, like without a doubt, middle class, lower middle class, the technocrats, and of course, business owners. So, with that, I think you have a better understanding. Do you agree with all three of my choices or not? I don't know. Maybe you have a chance to correct one of my other ideas here. Maybe you're completely on board. I'd be interested to hear from you. Hey, it's Brian of 360 Politics. Thanks for watching. I want to remind you, help me feed Charlie. Hit the like and hit the subscribe button, and we'll go ahead and make sure that we're sending our latest stories right to your inbox. And remember, the biggest battle we fight is the one between our ears. Control your thoughts and win the day. Have a great day.